As soon as Christina moved to the senior pastor's house, she became the shining star of the church. Many brothers and sisters in the church visited the main pastor's house to make her acquaintance. Most of the women who visited her were mothers of young boys who were looking for life partners for their sons. Likewise, most of the men who came to see her were young boys who were searching for suitable brides. Christina met Indians' ideal requirements for suitable life partners and surpassed them. She was desirable to every typical Indian family looking to wed their son off. Her complexion was fair, she possessed an extreme beauty, she was young and above all, she was an NRI, or non-resident Indian, from America. In fact, many of the above qualities could be found in single Indian girls, but the last quality was absolute rarity in the church. Christina, ignorant to this fact, did not know why those men and women had visited her. She assumed that they had come to visit their church pastor and his wife and had talked to her out of courtesy. As soon as it was expedient, the senior pastor commissioned 3 brothers to undertake the task of assisting Sister Christina. In that church, every man was addressed as a brother and every woman a sister except the pastors and their wives. The 8 pastors had the honorific of pastor attached to their names. Christina's 3 helpers gallantly refused any wage but did not decline the offer for incidental expenses. All of the appointed brothers were employed and could only conduct their searches on Saturdays and Sundays. On Saturdays, they promised to work for Sister Christina from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. without pay. On Sundays, they would begin the search at 2 p.m. until 10 p.m., offering to work through all statutory and religious holidays. India has the highest number of public holidays in the world due to the many religions it has. The search for Sister Christina's mother began the very next Saturday. In the interim, her life was a hive of activity and many things happened to her which are worthy of mentioning, but due to the importance of locating her mother, we will ignore them and go directly to the first day of search. The 3 brothers, besides their zeal and love to help a sister in Christ, harbored hidden agendas. We will ignore those concealed agendas, too, for the time being and go ahead with the search. Searching for a Muslim woman by the name of Rehana Khan among the millions of Muslims in Mumbai was like looking for a small rock in a mountain of stones. The name Rehana was as common among Indian Muslim women as the name Mary in the West or Fatima in the Middle East. The last name Khan was used by almost 75% of Indian Muslims and the rest go by Sheikh. So to narrow down the search, Sister Christina informed her helpers to use her Muslim name Ifat Khan. She requested her helpers to search for a Muslim woman by the name Rehana Khan who used to have a daughter called Ifat Khan. Such little information proved to be next to useless. The first month revealed dozens of Muslim women having the name of her biological mother, and each one of them begot a daughter named Ifat Khan. Sister Christina was compelled to reveal more hidden secrets about her mother and her. She disclosed to her helpers that the last time she saw her mother was when they were in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and at that time, she was 7 years old. The reason of their separation was that her mother was falsely accused as being a prostitute, thrown behind bars, tried by an Islamic Sharia court, and sentenced to be stoned to death. Nonetheless, some Americans intervened and saved her mother's life. After spending 3 years in a Saudi jail, her mother returned to Mumbai. The senior pastor, his wife, and the helpers told Sister Christina that such information would hinder the search rather than help it. According to them, no Indian woman would admit to being charged with adultery in Saudi Arabia even if she was proven innocent. Such information would damage her reputation among her Muslim community and neighbors. Sister Christina changed her former version of the story and told them that her mother was accused of having 2 husbands at the same time. This new information sounded a bit better than the first charge, but it had some moral difficulty in it. Ethically speaking, how could she expect young boys to go around from house to house, chal to chal, hut to hut, and slum to slum searching for a Muslim woman who was called Rehana Khan, had a daughter by the name of Ifat Khan, and got separated from her because she was accused of having 2 husbands at the same time, sentenced to be stoned to death, saved by some foreigners, etc. All the additional personal details were discarded after being deemed less than helpful. As it turned out, the helpers were told by the senior pastor and his wife to depend on God and fervent prayers. With the search ongoing, Sister Christina was faced with another serious problem. She soon discovered that her helpers were now hopelessly in love with her. She liked all of them, but she didn't love any one of them. She mixed with them freely and looked at them as good friends, but her friendly attitude toward them was construed as favor and interest by each of them. Every time they came to do her bidding, she would travel with them in the same taxi, sitting side by side and in close proximity. In the interest of cordial relations, she would dine with them and would occasionally have her supper with them. Familiarity breeds contempt, and soon her helpers starting to push limits and were inviting her for meals at their homes. In their eagerness to carry favor, some of her hosts took her on discreet sightseeing trips around Mumbai, being careful to conceal their efforts from the other brothers and sisters in the church. The church had ironclad rules forbidding any sort of gender interacting before marriage, which in effect also denied love marriage. The process of matrimony usually involved a brother signaling his intent to his family. His representatives would then advise the church via the pastor and his wife. If the family of the other party consented, then the proposal would be made official and the marriage would take place soon. The engagement waiting period under any circumstances should not extend 3 months. Sister Christina did not know the seriousness of the friendship until their proposals began to come to her one after another. In fact, in less than 2 months she received 8 proposals from other interested brothers, but she rejected them all, without being obliged to give a reason. When her helpers started to send their proposals through their mothers, Sister Christina was forced to reveal her vow of celibacy. She told the senior pastor's wife that she made a vow not to marry and she decided to remain a nun who married herself to the Lord Jesus. The pastor's wife rebuked her strongly and told her that that was a pagan practice. Only Catholic priests and nuns and Hindu sannyasins and sannyasinus do such abominable practices. According to her, a true Christian should not make such a heretical vow. The decision of Sister Christina immediately reached the ears of the senior pastor, his many assistant pastors and their wives who were pastors too, and then spread like fire among the elders and their surviving wives, the deacons and the deaconesses, the prophets and the prophetesses, the apostles, the teachers, the prayer warriors, women's leaders, youth leaders, and the leaders of house churches and other various groups, etc. She then found herself immersed in many counseling sessions designed to align her to the beliefs of the church. Being subjected to such huge amount of harsh counseling and rebuking, Sister Christina was forced to review her vow of celibacy. Nonetheless, she told her counselors that she looked at those 3 brothers who were helping her as good friends, but she wasn't interested to marry any one of them. Her decision disappointed many people in the church, especially her helpers and their families. Shortly after rejecting the 3 proposals of her helpers, Sister Christina received a prophecy uttered by one of the highly respectable prophets of the church. In his prophecy, he claimed that the Lord talked to him and told him that he had chosen Sister Christina as a suitable helper for Brother Bruno. For that very reason, thus said the Lord, I have caused her to forsake her comfortable life in the States and come to dwell in India for a season. Brother Bruno happened to be one of her 3 helpers whom she liked more than the other 2. Sister Christina was tempted to reject the prophecy, but another prominent self-appointed prophet in the church had confirmed it. Not very long ago, that renowned self-appointed prophet put one of the families in the church in a heap of trouble, and that before Christina's fate had taken her over there. At that time, his prophecy had to do with a one-sided love story between a rich and beautiful girl and a poor and ugly boy. It had also to do with the question of high caste versus low caste. Caste system is so rooted in the Indian society, just like polygamy in the African culture. No matter how spiritual and committed the Indian Christian may become, still he will follow the caste system, and the African Christian will practice polygamy. The girl in question was the daughter of the wealthiest family in that church. Her fabulous beauty and family background qualified her to go into film industry and be a film star, but her mother's religious commitment stood on her way to Bollywood, Indian Hollywood. On the other hand, besides being poor and ugly, the boy under discussion was illiterate and crazy. The girl was from the highest caste, in India, which its adherents were known as Brahmins, i.e. gods on earth, while the boy was from the lowest caste that its followers go by various names such as Dalits, Harijans, Untouchables, etc. In fact, the followers of the lowest group were excluded from the caste system and called outcasts and ostracized as untouchables. The followers of the main four-caste system, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudra, were not allowed to touch the Dalits, Harijans, or mix with them in any way. Even stepping over the shadow of the outcast defiles the Brahmin, and likewise the passing shadow of the untouchable pollutes the member of the other castes. In Indian society, the caste system is not confined to Hinduism, but penetrated into other religions, and the person will continue to retain his social status even if he has converted to Christianity or Islam. If he has immigrated to America or Canada or landed in the moon, still his low caste will follow him as a shadow or ghost. As if it is a criminal record that only death can release him of it. By the way, of a true practical example, a few years ago in the Canadian city of Vancouver, a Hindu girl fell in love with a Hindu boy. It wasn't a one-sided love as the case in question, but it was a true genuine love from both sides. The family of the girl stood against the match because their daughter was from a high caste while the boy from a low caste. In order to avoid social stigma or fatal consequences, the lovers fled to India and got married in a court at Mumbai. When the news of their marriage reached Canada, the family of the girl hired Gondas, bandits or gangsters, and told them to kill the boy as well as their own daughter. Those thugs raided the apartment of the couple and viciously attacked them. The girl died, but the boy survived. So, in a society where everyone believes in the caste system and arranged marriage, those two kids, currently under discussion, were unmatchable. To try to match them up was just like attempting to bring together day and night, light and darkness, fire and water, or reconciling God with Satan. Nevertheless, the outcast boy claimed that he had seen a vision from the Lord. In his vision, behold, he saw himself dressed up as a bridegroom while by his side was sitting a beautiful bride, and that bride was none other than that unattainable high caste girl. When he started to share his vision with the congregation of the church, everyone laughed at him and no one took him seriously. Even the girl and her mother disregarded his vision and discarded it as the production of the devil. The matter became serious when another prophet in the church openly confirmed it. That was the same self-appointed prophet who would later on confirm the prophecy regarding Brother Bruno and Sister Christina. Now a serious problem arose because the leaders of the church collectively believed and taught that if a prophecy was uttered by two brothers, it could not be from the devil, but the very word of the Lord himself. So, it appeared that the girl and her mother should comply by the rules of the church, or they would be considered by every believer as rebellious to the will of God. Some over-optimistic members of the church who formerly doubted the match thought that the Lord might work a miracle and transform that miserable low-caste boy into a suitable match for that high-caste girl. For some people it was like the story of the Beauty and the Beast, which never happens in real life except in fancy imagination of an unrealistic storyteller of fairy tales. The story of that wretched boy and that beautiful damsel in distress had shaken the foundation of the church to its very core. The mother and her daughter found themselves facing a serious dilemma. Their faith was put to the test in a hard way. On one hand, the mother had either to accept the confirmed prophecy and allow her beautiful, rich, highly educated, and high-caste daughter get married to the ugliest, poorest, illiterate, craziest, and lowest caste boy in the church, or reject it and incur the wrath of God and the harsh discipline of the church. That mother did not leave a stone unturned in order to climb over that mountain. She understood that her daughter and she were standing in a crossroads or shifting ground. Any road they would take will plunge them in either spiritual annihilation or social massacre and eternal misery and condemnation in hell. Before we show how that distressed mother came out of that dilemma unharmed and untainted, let us keep the Bible aside and talk church politics. Being a rich and very influential woman in the society, the desperate mother was left with no choice except to resort to worldly means in escaping the two horns of that dilemma. First of all, her husband was a crorepati, or multi-billionaire, and a big shot in the film industry, while she was once an actress in Bollywood before she repented and became a Christian. Only her daughter and she were converted to Christianity while her husband was still a Hindu. In her distress, she consulted her unbelieving husband and humbly sought his advice. The husband felt very much offended when he heard about the proposal for his daughter, which came from a chal boy that he would not allow to be even a watchman or servant or peon in one of his many mansions and enterprises. The first step the wealthy family took was to try to force the boy to deny his vision and consider it a figment of his imagination or the work of the devil. They hired some antisocial elements, Gondas, and sent them to the slums where that boy was living. When the wretched boy refused to recant his prophetic words, those goons mercilessly hammered him and left him half dead. Before they left, they had plucked out his nails, removed his teeth, dislocated his jaw, broken his right hand and left leg, broken some of his ribs, fractured his skull, and made many more bruises in his body. The poor boy spent a couple of months lying lifeless in a dirty hospital for outcasts, while his soul was suspending between heaven and earth. Many prayers and fasting were offered to God on his behalf. After everybody gave up hope on him, the boy surfaced out of his long coma. Following another month of intensive care, his soul at last settled in his broken body. When he got discharged from the hospital, many believers counted it a miracle. Although, everyone in the church guessed who was behind the vicious attack, but no one could prove it. When the boy came back to the church, he became more adamant on his vision. He claimed that the Lord had appeared to him many times, while he was in his calamity, and confirmed the vision and the prophecy. The wealthy woman and her beautiful daughter found themselves back to square one. This time, they had to deal not only with their old dilemma, but with a nasty scandal as well. The members of the church did not only whisper their gossips to one another, but some of them went to the extent of sending anonymous letters to the desperate mother and her frustrated daughter. In their letters, they blamed them for their cowardly attack on the poor boy and rebuked them for going to unbelievers to solve their problem. In the eyes of many believers, the mother and her daughter were condemned as notorious backsliders, while the boy became a spiritual hero. The new developments led the girl to quit going to the church and stop reading her Bible. She was spending most of her time crying in her private chamber. She became so frustrated and suicidal. This new situation led her father to determine to end up the life of the chal boy who dared to cause so much pain and grief in the heart of his beloved daughter, but his wife, fearing more scandals, restrained the hand of her angry husband. The father proposed to use his social influence and contacts in the police department of Mumbai and shut down that church. His wife strongly contested that ungodly suggestion. Then, she begged her furious husband to look for a lesser punishment which would remove that low-caste boy from the life of their beloved daughter forever. If the wretched boy would have been asked to choose between the two punishments, he would have preferred death than spending the rest of his life as a notorious criminal in a rotten Indian jail. Well, to cut long story short, the angry husband of that desperate wife and the father of that frustrated daughter spent a few lakhs of rupees and bribed some of his buddies in the narcotic department of Mumbai police and fixed that poor boy with a drug-related crime and sent him behind bars for the rest of his life. And that closed forever the chapter of that one-sided love story. Some optimistic members of the church continued to believe that one day the Lord would release that spiritual hero from his filthy cell and fulfill the vision and prophecy. Although, by the time Christina's destiny had brought her in that church, the beautiful girl had already got married to someone from among her equals and begot 2 high-caste children, still some hyper-believers believed that God would one day release the poor boy from the dungeon and strike dead the husband of that rich girl and fulfill his promise.